Good evening, everybody. Greetings from MedTalks IGCP Group. I'm Dr. K.K. Agarwal, the President of Confederation of Medical Association of Asia and Oceania, President HeartCare Foundation of India, Chief Editor MedTalks, and also the past National President Indian Medical Association. So all my viewers, we are going to have a discussion for 1 hour on dermatology and cosmodermatology. During the discussion, we will have three panelists with us. And at the moment, I have with me Dr. Satish Udare. He's a dermatologist in Mumbai. He has done his MBBS and MD from KEM Hospital. And he's a professor at MGM Medical College. And he has been active in IMA and many other associations with me. I also have with me Dr. Simal Swain. She is a cosmodermatologist and aesthetic expert. She is a MPhil from London. She is a diploma in dermatology, University of London, and she has done her MBBS from Punjabi University in 1989. And she is an expert in the field of cosmodermatology. So welcome, Dr. Swain, and welcome, Dr. Udare, Dr. Satish Udare. I'll start with Dr. Satish to give an introduction of COVID vis-a-vis, just give an introduction for the seminar that in the COVID era, why dermatologists are very, very, very important. And because Dr. Swain has to go in 15 minutes and Dr. Satish Lahiri will join after her, after that, I will start interacting with Dr. Simal Swain. Dr. Satish Udare.
Yeah, COVID era, now we have got a lot of things. First of all, we were locked in. Then secondly, we have come with a lot of reports that there are a lot of skin manifestations which are coming to light in this COVID infection. Some of the lesions have started along with the other manifestations. Some have come late, some of with severe this thing. Most of them appear to be as any viral infection, but there is a certain specific one, like this typical what we call as pseudo-chilblain. Second thing, why most of these things are given by the dermatologists who were employed in this COVID era in Italy, when they were also working in this managing the COVID patients. Second thing, what we are probably important because we are the ones which can work more easily in teledermatology, where we can see the photograph and most of the times can diagnose. And the third thing is that because of these PPE kits, the protection, personal protection kits, which are causing a lot of problems, and basically constant washing of the hands, wearing things, sweating inside, getting moisture, the pressure, friction, everything is adding up some dermatological conditions also. So dermatologists are going to play a little important role as far as COVID is concerned.
So Dr. Kaushik Lahiri, the professor and senior consultant dermatologist, Apollo Gleneagles Hospital, has also joined us. Thank you, Dr. Lahiri, to be here and joining us in a short notice. And I have a long association with him when he wrote his one of the book which we published with him with that. So Simal, I straight away come to you as a practitioner. What is going to be the change today and tomorrow? Today means the COVID era and tomorrow means the post-lockdown situation as far as cosmodermatology is concerned.
I mean, yes, we do practice. We do a lot of regular dermatology also, but we specialize in aesthetic medicine and cosmetic dermatology. So I think this is all very new, and we're going to start and we're making protocols by trying to understand what it involves. And I think we're going to have a lot of learnings as we go along. But some of the basic things that we thought about when you open the clinic is, first of all, the entrance. There should be a single entrance as far as possible. Then when clients come in, what needs to be really available is your shoe covers, a good hand washing place, sanitizers, temperature check at the entrance, and everything definitely needs to be paperless. They're not going to carry any files. You're not going to do any cash transactions with them in that way. And as far as we thought about appointments was that we would take a lot of appointments on on the phone, get a lot of history on the phone, get them to fill out a form on the phone and on email or phone or whatever is comfortable for them. and stagger and space out a lot of the appointments and take a full history about, I mean, travel is not relevant anymore, but about how they've been going around, have they been at home or any contact with any COVID patients. So just that, and a legal disclaimer that they must sign that they will not hold the clinic responsible if anything actually happens. That's one. Then in terms of social distancing, I mean, in what we are going to do as far as possible is we have big clinics to try and get the clients to go into the rooms as quickly as possible. But if they are, of course, waiting, we know all the social distancing norms, about 6 feet between patients and 2 meters between patients and staff. And now is the dress code. So when we come to aesthetics, we've really sort of, juggled around, thought a lot about it. And we realized that we've got to have N95 masks, gloves, and shoe covers to be definitely worn by all the staff at all times. Hair needs to be neatly tied up and caps to be worn by everybody. Then also disposable gowns. So when people are doing procedures, and that's where we decided that we'd have to divide the procedures into low risk, medium risk, and high risk. Now, obviously, the high risk ones are aerosol generating procedures like lasers, which we've thought of. But we've got to, so the dress code would depend on that. I mean, we might even decide to do a full PPE for aerosol generating procedures if you need to do like a laser for like Q-switch lasers or laser for pigmentation. But only mainly face shields and glasses to be, and the mask to be used to add it on to the other things for most of the others, medium and low risk procedures. Now, when I talked about, I mean, the IADVL said no procedures to be done, but in aesthetics, people do come, they want procedures. So we tried to think about what would be the safest. So the safest procedures that we looked at, the low risk ones were all the body contouring ones and body laser hair reduction. The medium risk in understanding was medical facials and monopolar radio frequency. High risk was, of course, cautery, radio is complete no-no. Then, like Nd:YAG, Q-switch lasers, PRP, microneedling, I think would depend on the way it's done. It could be medium risk, it could be high risk, but because it involves body fluids, at the moment we are putting it into the high risk category. We'll see how we get on when we do it. And also Botox and fillers, I would have to think it's not, I mean, as long as you take your precautions, even hospital doctors are giving injections all the time. So I would possibly put it in a medium risk category. Then also we've started training our staff on different protocols so that it becomes a habit, it becomes a way of life. They start behaving like that even at home, and have only 30% of the staff at any given time. And of course, the most important thing is you've got to, have that sense of safety, and it has to be done very properly and with full protocols. Your disinfection techniques, that you have fumigation morning, evening in clinics, and you disinfect machines after each procedure. We're getting, again, the right protocols from the companies, and cleaning surfaces every half an hour, with chlorhexidine and sodium hypochlorite. The other thing that was a little bit of a task was deciding about whether we should test our staff. So, perhaps, yes, before we come in, we'll get everybody to be tested once and test maybe every 2 weeks. And also if people are very keen to get aerosol procedures like laser hair reduction remains a very popular procedure and people sometimes have already paid for it, then we thought we could possibly ask them to do an RT-PCR testing before they come in. Really, that was all. That's what we've been thinking about.
So I'll talk to one question to Dr. Lahiri. And Dr. Lahiri, when she was talking, Dr. Symbol was talking about was lasers she cannot do because of aerosol producing. Unfortunately, we don't have...
not all lasers. Like, for example, a super hair reduction is also, there's not that much singeing of hair. So that could be like...
No, my question is different, that because we don't have AII rooms in India, that is airborne isolation infection rooms with negative pressure. So what we are recommending at our association level is to use air purifiers with a CDR of 10 exchanges per hour. There you will be able to take away all the aerosols into that, and you may be able, they will not work like a negative pressure, but they may be useful. That's one. When we were talking to Singapore protocol, and they said the contact time of the patient with the doctor has to be less than 30 minutes. That means why Kanika Kapoor did not infected so many people when she attended a party, because her exposure time per person was less than 3 minutes. Therefore, if your exposure time is less than 30 minutes, then the chances of getting an infection with it, even if the person is positive, is low. This is
Sure.
based on theory that if you have a traveler with AFB positive TB, and he's traveling with you on the next seat, and if you are flying from Delhi to Chennai, your chances of acquiring infection is 0.
Yeah.
In a
Okay.
plane, you require minimum 8 hours of flight to catch the infection. So there is always a minimum time of contact with the patient. And that minimum time of contact, according to Singapore protocol, it is 30 minutes. In India, we still don't know. We are still following 15 minutes. So we are telling people that you finish your ICU round in 15 minutes. To GPs, we are telling your contact time should be with the patient 3 minutes. Rest should be on video and rest should be weight, height. Everybody is taken outside. So doctor's contact should be less than 3 minutes. So in
So
your
we are-
laser room, in your dermatological procedure, if your contact time is less than 30 minutes, and if you are using air purifiers, and if you are using a PPE, practically the risk is 0. I'd like Dr. Larry to answer and then Simal to answer. Dr. Larry.
Thank you, Dr. Agarwal, for inviting me to this webinar, and I'm happy that I could just budge in to this. Actually, you'll be happy to know that our IAD, we have a special interest group on laser surgery. Very recently, we came up with recommendations and protocols. Some SOP initial, these are being recommended. Almost all are being just told by Dr. Simon. Very nicely, she has told. But I'll just point towards another paradigm that I think has been neglected. That is the cost part. Not only we need to be safe ourselves, our clinic staffs and the patient, we need to think about making the procedure cost effective. Because remember during this lockdown, an estimated 140 million Indian people lost their employment. About 45% household across the nation has reported a drop in income, and only 1.9% GDP growth is expected. And maybe it may be 0 as well. So for that, we need to make the procedures cost effective and safe. Safety is first. Everything has been discussed. I don't want to repeat all these things, but the cost effectiveness is also another issue that we need to think about. And number 2 is before the patients come to our clinic, the triage is important, because pre-screening, explain the procedure, and we are opening the clinic. As you know, yesterday, Government of India came up with the directive of orange zone, red zone, green zone, and also containment area. For ABC, that is red, orange, and green, you can open your clinic. Now, how to open your clinic? I think within next 1 week, we all will open our clinic. And we all are engaged in essentially clinical, aesthetic dermatology, and dermatosurgery. What we are expecting, I was engaged in a nationwide webinar this morning. What we are thinking that there will be a temporary surge in the clinical cases for the first 10 or 15 days.
Sure.
After that, the economic gloom will set in. Patient flow may reduce if the situation worsens regarding the COVID-19. Regarding the aesthetic procedures, you have taken wonderful steps, and I must compliment you, whatever you told, very, very comprehensive. But the patient, for last 10 years, the upliftment of Indian middle class, the real, our real clientele, the real patient were not exactly the rich or exactly the poor. They were the middle class.
Of course.
Middle class
and upper middle classes.
And upper middle class. The middle class and upper middle class clientele for our aesthetic procedure will decrease significantly. But the serious dermatosurgery and your scar revision or hair transplantation, those who can afford and those who cannot wait, that will remain static, or that will again come up after 3 or 4 months. So this was what everybody.
Well, that what you say makes a lot of sense. Yes,
Yeah,
I think we are going to see a change in the way people will also take procedures. Yes.
Yes. So these are the
including what I feel is the telemedicine. Quite a
Telemedicine.
few
That
of
is
patients
very
are going
important.
Telemedicine
to
has
Yes,
been
going to
playing a
harp
big
on
role
telemedicine.
even at this time. Yes,
Yes. For
we've been all doing a lot of consults.
last 1.5 months, actually, telemedicine is the only thing that keeps us taking whatever we are doing only based on telemedicine. So this is a new situation, new paradigm. And whatever we are creating is the SOP, that is the guideline, and we don't have anything in our textbook. So
No.
that is what is interesting. And regarding the, I think it suffices for the question what Dr. Agarwal has asked. Is there any other question, Dr. Agarwal, regarding this?
I just want
I
to add
will,
up only
I
one
will
thing.
ask a question to Dr.
I
Satish.
mean, Dr. Larry, can I ask you, what is your understanding now of procedures which involve body fluids? Like if you're doing a filler injection, you're doing a Botox injection, or you're doing PRPs, or you're doing microneedling. What is your sense of what is the risk there? If
Yeah,
you're taking all...
actually, if we go through the IADVL SIGLA guideline, we have for everything we have like a protocol already in space, specific precautions for different procedures. I can come one by one. That is like for ablative laser, you need a full PPE.
Yes.
And with smoke evacuator, with N95 mask, with goggles and everything. And for carbon laser pill, to better avoid. First 2 weeks, what we are suggesting that go for your clinical dermatology cases.
Correct.
After 2 weeks, that is after it more opens up, hopefully it will after 17th, then we can take up a few cases which is not essentially on face. Now this is a dicey situation because once you open up your clinic for aesthetic procedure, we are dealing with face. So taking anything on the face will be difficult until and unless you cover the patient with another PPE with a window on the operating window, and you properly cover and sanitize all your machines. That's also
of course.
We have a protocol for that as well.
Yes, that I know. I've got the guidelines.
Yes. And the interesting thing is regarding this plume producing procedure, not only aerosol, we have so many plume producing procedures. Those are to be avoided.
Of course.
Now, because we have all the directives, all the protocols for HIV, HBV. We don't have anything in our hand regarding this virus. But very recently from Guangzhou, there is a report, very, very disturbing report, that a few patients were infected for centrally air-conditioned
in the restaurant.
In a restaurant. So almost all of our clinical centrally air-conditioned. So that is another tricky situation that we will face. So
I think, yeah, that's a difficult one, but
I'll come back on this. Simil, just 1 minute. Dr. Satish, today we have been discussing in our Indian Medical Association meeting that USA has come out with a law that all doctors in USA will be given an immunity from omission or commission of any act while treating a patient. Nobody will be able to sue them. In India, private sector is not under the disease epidemic act. Government doctors are protected that nobody can sue them, but private doctors are legally liable. So we are filing, most likely we are giving a representation to the government. If the government doesn't listen to it, we will be filing a PIL. That doctor should be given a protection.
That's very good, yes.
Yeah,
Satish, what are your views into it? Satish?
No, there is I was saying that we are definitely, not grouped together, and IMA should take lead to protect doctors themselves, because we are definitely always been a soft target of the population. Doctors are basically targeted for their omission as well as commission, and as well as we always know, medical science is never perfect science, and this has been thrown definitely as far as this COVID is concerned, because a lot of new things are coming up. Nobody is 101% sure. Some amount of COVID earlier at 2002 and 4, we have got some knowledge, but not entire knowledge. So things are new. And we have been trying with whatever knowledge, whatever papers we are doing, what are the protocols we have. What I was, after listening to Simil, I realized whatever said and done, that gives you into bracket good amount of protection. That means it gives you good amount of protection.
And you know, I must tell you that
100%.
I have evolved over a period of time, because my first thought was, I mean, people are coming for aesthetics and they're going to see all these ghost-like faces. They're going to think, oh my God, what's the point? Let's just go back and, you know, maybe come back in a few months.
Dr. Agarwal, actually,
Yes.
as you know that I'm also involved with the West Bengal Doctors Forum. And you know about our involvement, our association with you, sir. And very recently, actually, doctors, not only in Bengal, all over India, were caught in a peculiar situation. Like there was some pressure from the public. Where has the doctor vanished completely? And we need not all the cases are COVID. There are many non-COVID situations. There are many non-COVID dermatological situations. So psoriasis has not vanished. Like lichen planus has not vanished. Even pimples has not vanished. So where the bloody doctor has vanished completely. So why you are not opening your clinic? That was one pressure. And another issue is the government was completely tight-lipped. We have not told you to close your clinic, so we cannot tell you to open your clinic. So now, after you open the clinic, not all the doctors practice in Delhi, Bangalore, Bombay, or Kolkata. They practice in some places called Jalpaiguri or Udaipur, or smaller places. So whenever you're opening your clinic, hundreds of people will come to your clinic. And if you are Dr. Agarwal, many people will, or Dr. Satish Udare, everybody will try to get in touch with Dr. Udare. So difficult thing is this social distancing in the clinic. If you cannot provide social distancing, if we cannot follow the protocol, how to control the private clinic? So that is a thing we don't have any answer, because next week we will face the situation in real life. What is your opinion, sir?
So I can tell you to all three of you what at Confederation of Medical Association we are recommending is, suppose you have a clinic of 15 by 15, suppose size, it's a 15 by 15. You do not allow more than one relation to enter.
Yes.
So you will have to, at the gate, you take temperature, and somebody is making a COVID consent. Under the COVID consent, you give a declaration that I do not, my family, me, or my neighbors are not having these symptoms. If they're having these symptoms, they go back home and come back on a teleconsultation. When they wash their hands, when they're coming inside, they're wearing a cap, a shoe cover, and a face mask. That's a must. And when they enter inside in the clinic, the main clinic where the patient is being seen has a minimum furniture. All furniture is being taken out so that there is no place for two relations to sit. Only one relation will be sitting. We are suggesting a new business in terms of general practitioners that take the files of the patients. There should be designated general practitioners in every city whose job is to make summaries. They will take the file, keep it for 3 days. After 3 days, they will open it up so that it is desanitized, and they will make an electronic summary and give it to the patient. So we will not touch the file of the patient. The patient will not come back to us with 10 files and we are searching their reports. It has to come to us in an electronic format. Our time with the patient will be minimum. Now, what they have done it, but what the people like in Apollo and Max have done it is, between the patient and the doctor, there is a transparent parda. Okay, so,
Yes.
So when you are examining on a bed, you examined it for 1 minute, then he goes back, and then in between you and him is a plastic parda, and then you are talking to him for that. So therefore, your face-to-face time with the patient is less than 3 minutes. And then when he goes away, that parda is cleaned by a spray of 0.1% bleaching powder. So if you have a minimum, and then your staff and you compulsorily are wearing a cap. So what I say if personal protective equipment, suppose the impermeable gown is not available, in that particular case, you can go back to the clinic, have a OT dress with you, which is a shirt and a pajama. You wear a OT dress so that your home dress is not infected.
Yes.
And that OT dress, you can use it for 4 hours OPD, and then you put it for a washing and decontaminating. Absolutely. And your surfaces are decontaminated every time the patient goes.
That
so
makes
you
sense.
take 10 minutes extra. You take 10 minutes extra, therefore you can charge 10% extra in your fee. Nobody stops you. We are trying to come out with a recommendation if IMA agrees. Otherwise, all association can come forward and say we are going to charge 10% extra for providing quality and safety to you. This 10% is being charged so that patients do not get cross infections with that. With that, you get a reasonable degree of protection and you can start working. And then second thing we are discussing, there is a circular yesterday by the government that you cannot do COVID test in asymptomatic cases. That also we are going to challenge. That also we are going to challenge. That is my right. If I'm doing for a cosmetic procedure, it is my right to have a IgM and COVID negative situation. Even if false positive, false negative can happen, but at least I'm protecting myself. So
As
therefore,
per
you have
our
the right to
guideline,
get.
as per our guideline from IADVL SIG, all procedures, interventional, be it aesthetic, dermatosurgical, or laser, we need that RT-PCR. That is the gold standard. And if the patient is not cleared, we are not supposed to do that. So
you're not supposed to do that. Okay.
So this is actually not
A
only
protocol now.
Yeah, you are putting your staffs at risk. So we need to think about that as well.
Dr. Larry, here also I say is the day IgM is available, we will do both the tests because RT-PCR is very sensitive in the first week, but its positivity reduces in the second week.
Yes.
But in second week, IgM takes over. So if we say IgM is negative, RT-PCR is negative, your chances of getting an infection are practically nil. And that is going to be my protection. That means I am not going to start instead of saying that we are going to start our procedure after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe after 2-3 weeks situation is the same. So we are recommending is the day RT-PCR is available to me and the way the IgM test is available to me, we will open completely. Because then we are not taking any risk. And for it is like an HIV situation. Dr. Satish, what are your comments on that?
Dr. Agarwal, if you kindly allow, I'll just take leave because you know that I have another
final comment. Give your final comments.
My final comments is that this is a new paradigm. We need to follow the guideline protocol and whatever we need to learn from each other. Just now we are learning
yes.
each other. So
we have to share our learnings with each other.
Be very safe and we always read whatever your state and the national government protocols are saying. Every day, every alternate day, these are changing. So you need to be absolutely sure what you are doing. That is my last remark regarding this.
Thank you, Dr. Kaushik Lahiri, to be here with us.
I will also take leave, Dr. Agarwal, but thank you so much for having me, and it is very useful to talk to Dr. Udare and Dr. Lahiri. Thank you ever so much.
Dr. Udare, how are you?
Fine, sir.
The simple question is that if everybody is going to wear a mask,
yes,
everybody is going to wear a mask, whether a male or a female, there will be no need of lipstick or a makeup.
No lipstick, no hair.
Now there is a new mask with a transparent part here. I have seen a new mask is coming. Maybelline is coming up with a new mask.
And you've got to deal with the pressure of the mask also with those, how long it takes to go away. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Agarwal. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
I'll continue with Dr. Satish. Dr. Satish, I will continue with the discussion that you see Simal, she was unable to manage her hairs. And if a COVID positive patient finds out that his hairs are infected, how to take care of hair at home?
Basically, take care of home when you are in the clinic. You better cover it totally. It has to be, if my staff comes, nobody is going to have those hairs open. It has to be totally tied up in a bunch, and then a total cap is covered on it, which will be discarded at the end of the session. Which again, as you were saying, that OPD will not be open for more than 4 hours at a time. We won't have, like I used to have 6 hours OPD continuously. I wouldn't be having that. And second thing, I'm really worried about this thing. Like, I take all the precautions. As you said, I am only 3 minutes I'm contact. It is very, very difficult to counsel a patient, very difficult to patient. If I don't touch the patient and patient's skin, I don't think it really matters to the patient. Otherwise, it is same as my giving telemedicine. If it is sitting 10 feet away from me.
Follow what Fortis and Max is doing. they are putting a transparent screen, which is like a parda and curtain between the patient and you. After you have seen him for 3 minutes physically, rest of the counseling can take place between you and him when there is a curtain which is absolutely transparent. So if he wants more than 3 minutes discussion, for that you are not giving him you are still face to face, but there is a curtain in between. And that's been accepted now because Max is doing it, Fortis is doing it, Bombay is doing it. So I've been having these seminars almost for the last 1 month. I have practically seen what every hospital and every consultant is doing. And you tell him that this is in your interest because I may be positive. So once you tell them, they will say, okay.
Second, yeah, then it is a little bit okay because at least, when I was talking to the patient, when I'm counseling him, I want to see the expression on his face, whether he is understood or not.
So this is transparent. Absolutely, you can see the
transparency. It looks little comfortable because basically I can see my patients working. Second thing I was really worried.
Yes, go ahead.
Second thing I was really worried is if I open suddenly and allow everybody, basically the idea, again, the guidelines say that you give him an appointment, the appointment will be spaced. He has to come that time, stand in this thing. Like most of the things, I'll ask the patient to sit in his car downside, call me up, can I come up? And if he says, okay, your slot is now empty, come and stand at this particular time, then talk to this thing. By that time, I have got all the clinical data required on this thing. So only thing I'll have to see it and counsel and continue. But Indian people, nobody comes on time. And then I am really worried about is the rush outside my clinic, which makes people susceptible when they have a group. The simple thing, there was distribution of grains for the population, free this thing, and the amount of people gathered together with mask, without mask, no social distancing that may happen. Though fortunately we do have a little bit of educated patients, but what about patients who are not educated? What's about the patients who are going to come who haven't got a smartphone with them? Those are going to be difficult. Those are going to walk in and at the door they are going to say, no, I've got a very serious disease and doctor has to see me. It is easy on one side to say, no, I can't see you, you have not taken prior appointment. But when he insists, no, I have got some certain things, I have got say simple thing, I have got severe urticaria, I've been scratching, not slept in the night, and you have to see me now. So these are the situation that's going to be difficult.
I'll tell you the answer for that. The younger people will see more patients. And say I'm 61, I'm going to limit my practice. There is no reason for us after the age of 58 to see something like 100 patients a day or 200 patients a day. Somewhere or the other, we'll have to put a limit. The younger people can take chances because even if they get infection, they will be okay in 14 days time. And we know that the disease is very, very, very mild. But 61 plus people who are carrying a high risk, we cannot take a chance. We cannot be looking after the interests of the people. WHO said, ministry said, everybody has said that even today, if you see the circular, that people who are 60 plus will not come out of their room. So therefore, if you see the Sweden formula, if you see the Germany formula, is very clear that 60 plus people start practicing from home only on telemedicine. So younger people will take up at this particular moment the challenge. And if you see the Italian model, and in Italian model, they only had in all government hospitals, only 40 minus people were kept in the circulation. None of the person was 40 plus, and 60% were women. Only 40% were male, and their mortality rate reduced.
COVID is saying that androgens are basically one of the person makes more susceptible to the disease. So males are more.
He likes androgens. He likes testosterone. He likes
even in situation in our country, the police people who are more than 60 are more affected than the younger generations.
So now I come back to specifically, how will a dermatologist pick up COVID infection clinically? How will be the rash? what will be the COVID dose? How will he diagnose that I am suspecting a COVID person without fever?
As far as recent reports which have come with COVID, there are two major reports which came. One from Italy initially, when the dermatologists themselves were put into COVID care, and they had initially this thing, and they had classified few lesions. Most of them are initially thought to be like any viral exanthems. No, you have got a vesicular rash, you have got a maculopapular rash, but the 2-3 peculiar ones are the pseudo-chilblain-like lesions which were there, which came little later in the COVID dissociation. COVID disease. The second thing which paper which came was from Spain, and this was a cohort study from all over Spain. All dermatologists say, and they have categorized into 5 different types. So these are the vesicular types, almost like something like chickenpox, but not chickenpox, because it is monomorphic, not polymorphic like chickenpox, a vesicular type. Then you have got urticarial type, which was mildly itchy, usually used to come after some days. Then you have got basically a maculopapular rash, which is either a scaly or not scaly, something like pityriasis rosea like rash. And then you have got basically this pseudo-chilblain-like rash. This pseudo-chilblain came late in the disease. These are the erythematous lesion, chilblain-like lesions, which usually used to come little late, remain for 8 to 10 days and disappear. These are nowadays considered a little more specific for this thing. Again, 101% surety is not there. But these are probably because of this thing. And the last ones are basically vasculitic like lesions. Now, these are the ones, again, they are not comes late. By that time, the patient is on many medications for this disease itself. And probably those livedoid lesions, especially vascular, which may be specific this thing, but we'll have to wait and watch and see whether this is going to be there. Then few lesions, there is another thing which has been observed is whether herpes zoster was more common in these patients. So probably these are the things. There is something called as paraviral group. There is a reactivation of certain viruses which can come inside after some illnesses. So whether we are 101% not sure, most of them are whether the paraviral conditions which are coming up like pityriasis rosea or drug-induced or primarily. We will soon come to know as we see more and more cases. But most important thing is you see one of these and you keep in mind whether will it be related to COVID or not, and you better ask the patient to get investigation done.
So in this era, in this COVID era, if you see any new lesion whatsoever, if you see a new skin lesion, you ask for the history of cough, breathlessness, loose motions, and then you have muscle pain, you have weakness, do you have
other
fever, do you have COVID, that you have loss of taste or loss of smell. So therefore, any new lesion in skin, instead of thinking of a dengue or other thing, which you also see for other exanthemas, other viral fevers, also think of COVID. Is that
keep it in the mind that this could be COVID?
This could be COVID. And what about specifically in children, the COVID dose?
COVID basically again, pardon?
Even toxic shock syndrome in children is coming now.
Children is more common. Fortunately, it is said that the disease itself is little less in children, though very young children like infants, probably it is little more. And you do get toxic shock-like syndromes in these patients.
So the message is, one message we have got is that dermatology sooner or later will have to start practice. If your age is 40 minus, you take the initiative and start. If your age is 60 plus, you do more of a teleconsultation and wait for your practice. In between 40 and 60, you judge your judgment and calculate your risks based on your comorbidities and decide. But younger people generation, specifically women, because dermatologists, a large number of them are also women, they should
doctors
start.
Themselves are more females nowadays.
Yes, therefore they should start their practice as early as possible. Country needs you, country patients needs you. That's one issue. Second thing is, in this particular season, if you find anybody who is having any rash or a skin lesion, which is new, which is unexplained, which is unusual, also think of COVID. I go back to the next section. Next section is when we are doing this, we are using sanitizers a lot today. And in sanitizers, we have all types of sanitizers, aloe vera, then we have polyethylene glycol, we have alcohol, and we have soap and water. So what are the different problems which one can face? Excessive
use of anything. Alcohol basically will take away all your oiliness from your skin. Constant washing with soap and water definitely will take all your oiliness from the skin. Second thing is that once you wash, don't apply. So the remedy is basically to apply moisturizers. But whatever said and done, basically when you wash your hands, when you use sanitizer, let them dry and let this dryness remain for some times. Around 10 to 15 minutes, it should remain so that the COVID won't be there. And then you apply the moisturizer. Because if you apply moisturizer immediately, it remains moist for this thing. And then, actual purpose of this thing may not attain 100%. So basically, let it dry and use it. You can wear gloves. Mind you, one of the things is irritant dermatitis. Second thing is contact dermatitis. So your skin is already damaged. The chances of developing some sort of allergic contact dermatitis is more high. And then last is basically age of the patient, the season, the previous condition, like atopics, who already have dry, sensitive skin. If they keep on using too much of these sanitizers and frequent washing, they are more likely to get this problem of ultimate leading to hand eczema. And mind you, once your skin gets damaged, the chances of any organism for that matter, including the COVID, entering into the body is little on the higher side. So apply your sanitizers, wash your hands, let it dry for some time, and use plenty amount of moisturizer. That's a message I would like to pass on.
So I was attending a Ayurvedic seminar the day before yesterday, and they said the best moisturizer is any oil, the sesame oil, the coconut oil.
Basically only oil.
They are also fat dissolvers.
Only oil basically will not give you moisturizing effect. It will be occlusive. So you'll have to wash, dry it, then probably wet your hands and then apply oil. If just applying oil, it is just occludes. So basically, if your hand is already dry, it is not going to be moisturized. It's not going to give you, it will just give you oil cover on top of that. We don't want only oil cover. We want to replace all that damaged epidermis, give hydration to the skin, and then prevent evaporation of this thing. So, the best thing is mixture of oil and water. I used to tell my atopics, the last part of your bath, you put a little bit of oil in this thing, shake it well, and then take it bath. So there is a good amount of thin water which is there, and then the oil layer, so the water evaporation is not there, and the hydration is best. So only oil is not the answer. So you'll have to hydrate it and then apply the oil.
Okay, so one is that moisturizer is important. With that, what about the gloves? Now we say that don't use latex gloves, use nitrile gloves, don't use powdered gloves. What is all that?
These are the things which are definitely going to add up the insult to like dentists who use it gloves in and out. I've consulted quite a few dentists who have got hand eczema. Because all those latex and this thing, sometimes when your skin barrier is broken, they develop allergic contact dermatitis, more so with this rubber, latex, and chemicals. Whereas your other this thing, powders definitely can cause this thing. Powders themselves, if it's a simple one, may give rise to secondary infection also. So using this polyvinyl thing is definitely prudent.
Now we are having a lot of people who are now you're supposed to wear PPEs, and that gives you lots of sweat. You feel heat within that. You say I'm not being able to sweat, or you feel heat, and then overlap. You are using a face shield, and all those things are also putting people into some skin problems. How to handle that?
Basically, yes. Unfortunately, we have got COVID. We are hoping that heat of May definitely kills the virus a little faster, but this heat of May is definitely going to cause more problem. we were discussing that, central AC and AC rooms will contain the virus, this thing. So AC is also sometimes no. Moment you wear all those PPEs, you are going to sweat inside. The most common thing what you can get is prickly heat or miliaria. So basically, after you have finished your, yes, after you have finished your duties, basically, you see that you aerate it very well, including, sometimes you can remove your mask and take a little bit of stand in front of the small fan and dry it up. You can get a lot of problems because of these PPEs. Your spectacles might press a little more on this thing. There will be contact dermatitis. There will be a friction because of that. You can get frictional dermatitis. Because of the pressure of the elastic and the elastic material can cause this thing. Things like acne, rosacea, perioral dermatitis. On scalp, you can get folliculitis because of this. A little bit of antiseptic use of soaps and cleansers will be definitely welcome in this situation. And once you have finished your duty, dry it properly, aerate it properly. That is one thing I'll ask you to do.
So thousands of people are there, and attendee number 1797 number attendee, Dr. Soren. This is while doing a teleconsultation, what precautions needs to take. I can tell you the legal answer. Legal answer is always ask the patient to call you. Don't pick up your secretary to arrange a meeting, because if you arrange a meeting, you require a consent. If patient calls you, patient uses the platform, patient gives you a WhatsApp call, take it for granted that this is a implied consent, because now patient is contacting you. As patient comes in your clinic is an implied consent. But if you
so
are
similarly, if he calls, it's an implied consent.
Yes, but implied consent will not be there if you are connecting to the patient. Then so I have, yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, when a patient calls you, gives you implied consent, if you still want to be sure, you can definitely send him all that. Many people have prepared a Google Forms, which will give their basic data, basic information about their disease, and at the end consent that I know this is a teleconsultation, which is definitely little inferior than your face-to-face consultation. And it may have some drawbacks, but I'm consenting with this because of the present COVID area.
Registration number 2874, Dr. Rasid Gohil. What about how to differentiate COVID papules from non-COVID papules?
As of today, there is no definite differentiation as such. These are the rashes which have come up. They almost look like viral exanthems at present. So the idea is, unless we see more and more cases of this and come to a basic differentiation, there are papules which will look like psoriatic papules. There are papules which will look like pityriasis rosea. The vesicles may look like ordinary chickenpox-like, which are not polymorphic. So all these things, as and when we'll go ahead, the only thing is we'll have to keep a high suspicion in our mind. Yes, this could be because of COVID. So keep in mind, and if the patient, as Dr. Agarwal has already suggested, if he has got any other symptoms which go, this thing, simple and best, which I love is loss of smell and loss of taste. So just ask him the question, and if it's yes, then better get him tested.
So I was yesterday with one food supplier chain, and I was interacting with one of the person who is a food carrier, and I said that whenever you are delivery, he was a food delivery boy. I said whenever you deliver your food to a house, and if they start shouting with you to you, कि taste नहीं है खाने का, smell नहीं है खाने की, so you ask him, I hope you are not suffering from COVID. So there is Harish Kumar, and he talks about what you talked earlier is, are we seeing cases with, he says, I am getting lots of cases of zoster with COVID.
It has been observed fact that zoster is definitely observed more in this thing, because basically as your immunity goes down, the patient has got chickenpox in the past, and as your immunity goes down, definitely herpes zoster as such is more common in as you advance in age. And COVID is definitely attacking people with advanced age. And if the immunity goes down, definitely herpes zoster is going to come up more in any individual whose immunity is now compromised.
Harishji, I am also editor of a IGCP group of publication. Anybody who has something interesting to contribute, if you have case reports, we'll be love to publish it. Also, Dr. Satish, we will love to have, because nobody's talking about herpes zoster. Even if you have a case report, we'd like to publish it immediately.
Sure enough.
Then Yashwant is talking about Kawasaki's disease, that in children we are seeing Kawasaki's disease. As a cardiologist, I know Kawasaki means we have a coronary aneurysms. But what about as a derma specialist, what do you mean by Kawasaki's disease?
Kawasaki disease is basically an immunological disease. And, typically it gives rise to, it is very common in viral exanthems. Exact cause is not known, but some sort of viral exanthem. So it is definitely has been observed more with COVID era. As Dr. Agarwal was saying, definitely why we are worried is that patient's heart is getting involved. Otherwise, it is one of the things. And even in past, it has been known, along with dengue also it was known, along with the old SARS infection, it was known Kawasaki was coming along with it.
So there is another question, Dr. Bala Narsimulu, and he is asking, there are so many dermatological manifestations of photos seen or COVID on online sites, and we really don't know actually they belong to COVID or not, or people are just publishing it. I'll ask Dr. Satish to answer, but Dr. Bala, we are coming out with a Twitter account. Tomorrow, it will be opened by night today. It will be called MedTalk Derma COVID. That means all the Indian doctors who are seeing skin manifestations can put there and people can discuss out amongst them, and they will be able to cross-check amongst each other. So we are going to send that link to all dermatologists in India. Kindly share all your skin manifestations and discuss amongst each other whether it really belongs to that or not. Dr. Satish, what are your views on that?
It is a good thing whether we will have a central registry, this thing where, like people who Spain, as they did, everybody, every dermatologist, they pulled up all their COVID patients and their skin manifestation. Then they analyzed it and statistically proved that these are more likely this thing. Similarly, in India, we have a lot of different genetic material, and we definitely will see different manifestations than what has been described by Western people. And considering that, it is a good step Dr. Agarwal has been taking, a group where things come up, this thing, and then there will be a discussion on that. And ultimately, we'll come to a conclusion that this is probably a COVID-induced skin manifestation than probably a routine viral exanthems.
Prafulla asked a question, is there any insurance cover for IIDVL in COVID-like situation? Only that there is nothing covered for the OPD, but for the inpatient, yes, all insurance companies are covering COVID. How to screen asymptomatic carriers in OPD practice? At this moment, Sanjeev Chaudhary, the only answer is when the antibody testing is available. At the moment, you can do RT-PCR with it has to be a shared decision between you and the doctor. Dr. Rashri Narvaka, he says, Bala, then Yashwant, then Gayatri Bhardwaj. Also UV sterilization. Can we use the UV sanitizers?
Basically,
I think you can. UV infrared.
UVC has to be there. UVC has to be there because we were worried about our ultraviolet chambers, which emit UVB and UVA. So whether we will allow our patients to take this in what we give it for psoriasis and vitiligo. UVA and B may not be able to sterilize it properly. What you need is UVC, and UVC in sufficient dose and sufficient time definitely will take care of COVID.
So let us summarize what we have done now. One is that as a doctor, it is our duty to see COVID patients. 2, COVID is going to stay. We don't know how long. 3, we cannot believe and depend on the vaccine because 2009 H1N1 came. Even today, most of us are not taking H1N1 because it is not in the universal program. Even
One
hospitals.
first case was injected with whatever vaccine has been prepared. So it was news yesterday that first case has been injected.
I know, but we don't know. We don't know how long the vaccine will last. We don't know, like polio, vaccine-induced polio, will it develop vaccine-induced COVID or not? We don't know. We don't know whether it is going to last like H1N1 annually. We don't know whether it will be effective in a mutant state. In India, 10 different mutations are there. Will it be available for all those 10? We don't know. So therefore, our vaccine is only one, and that is social distancing. That's the only vaccine which will have to prevent for us as far as we are concerned. If you want to open your university, yes.
For how long? That also we don't know.
We don't know. It may last, because other coronaviruses immunity lasts only for a year. So we don't have a permanent immunity like H1N1, and we don't have a permanent immunity. We also don't know whether the virus will recur or not. We also don't know whether the virus crosses the placenta or not, because those people in the first trimester haven't delivered. We don't know that this virus is not going to behave like Hep C or Hep B, will reoccur again and will have a clinical manifestation. We don't know. So idea is to prevent yourself as much as possible. And when you open your clinics, you have to take a conscious decision. Specifically, the younger ones, the male, specifically the women doctors should start immediately. Take precaution, protect yourself. If you protect yourself, your patient is protected. That make it for granted that if you protect yourself, your patient is protected with that. And for that, you need to have a head cover, a shoe cover. Forget about jewelry for the time being. Forget about your watches for the time being. Have minimum furniture in your room, and decontaminate your rooms. Like every OT is decontaminated, fumigated in the evening. Before you leave the room, ask your boy, whosoever he is, to declean, either fumigate or declean. Chlorine dioxide tablets are available, sachets are available. You put it into water, close the room, and it will produce gas. Within 2 hours, it will sterilize the whole room. So those things are available, like you fumigate, and then hydrogen oxide gases are available. You can fumigate your room, and that situation will come. Singapore Medical Association, the protocol is very simple, that if you are seeing a clinic and your clinic is a non-COVID clinic, if you are using an N95 mask and a glove, and if you are taking full precaution, the patient has come with a mask, patient has come with a glove, patient has a shoe cover, and even if it turns out to be a COVID positive, nothing to be done, your clinic cannot be closed. This recommendation was given to Gujarat, and they agreed, and they have stopped closing the clinics if a COVID patient comes, provided your contact time is less than 30 minutes and you are wearing full PPE. So make sure that you finish your procedures. Singapore is even recommending that if you have a surgical procedure where you feel 3 surgeons can do the surgery, 2 residents and the main surgeon, opening is done by 1 surgeon, 1 resident, and he goes away after 15 minutes. Main surgery is done by the main surgeon, and then he goes away within 30 minutes, and closing can be done by the 3rd resident. They say if you share that, and if your exposure time per patient is less than 30 minutes, your chances becomes very low. And if you do a RT-PCR test, which is going to become cheaper, it is, remember when we had our phones, it used to be 16 rupees per minute, and now it is almost free. Similarly, these tests are going to become cheaper. And once that becomes effective, you will be doing like a hemoglobin that you come with you will tell your patient, this is the appointment, get this test done, and then come back to me. So COVID-19 and IgG, IgM may become a routine. And once it becomes a routine, everybody will, home test is going to come. London wanted to do it, UK wanted to do it. You do your home test, like HIV is now coming with a home test. You do your home test and quarantine yourself and self-treat yourself. And the government of India now, two days back, has come back with a policy. You don't require a asymptomatic, non-oxygen dependent patient to be treated in a hospital. You can treat them at home. It is an opportunity for all of you. It is an opportunity for all of you. You are listening. You can also treat COVID patients. There is no COVID expert. If they are at home, if a patient comes to you with a skin manifestation, you can also manage them at home. Only is let them buy SpO2 monitor and ask them to check SpO2. If on walking or talking their SpO2 falls, they need admission. Otherwise, 80 to 90% of them are going to become all right. You can give them counseling like anybody else. And third thing is those doctors who are sitting idle at this particular moment, and they say that we are high risk, they can start getting the files of the patient, start making summaries and start charging for it. Because people like us are not going to accept the files of the patient. Patient comes with 10 doctors, separate files, and he wants us to see. None of us will touch the file today. And even if you get the file to make a summary, keep it for 3 days, let it be decontaminated, then make a summary. This is going to be a new opportunity. I won't call it as a business opportunity, but a new opportunity for the doctors to make it as a part of their profession with that. So, and that makes the end of 1 hour. So let me have Dr. Satish to wind up and say 5 taking home points. And then I say goodbye to all of you. And we will be back next week with another dermatological seminar. Dr. Satish, to wind up with 5 take-home messages.
Let us wind up for all of us. This day that COVID is going to be is there and is going to be there for a little longer time. We have to take care of ourselves, our staff, and our population and patients at large, so that nobody affects. If they are affected, as Dr. Agarwal said, definitely we can treat them. There are certain skin conditions which are coming in for to diagnose it, suspect COVID, and test the patient. If they have simple rash without much of this thing and PCO2, perhaps you can buy one pulse oximeter yourself, not very costly, put it in fingers, sterilize it well, and definitely treat the patients. Teledermatology has been, there is a definite, government has given a white sheet on that, and you can use teledermatology more easy for that dermatologist, because we can see a picture and diagnose most of this. So take care, go ahead. Females are a little more less susceptible to COVID. Younger generation is less susceptible. So younger generation definitely can go ahead and manage this COVID, this thing, rather than running away, as Dr. Kaushik Lahiri had said, that people are asking, we are suffering, where are the doctors gone? So we are not gone anywhere. We are there to help people. And even in this difficult era, we will help our needy patients. Thank you.
So to all my colleagues watching this program, Corona Namaste, and let me thank with folded hand Dr. Satish Udare to be here with us and giving a wonderful panel discussion, and also to Dr. Simal Soyan and Dr. Kaushik Lahiri. Both of them had to go for another seminar, but we had all 3 of them in the initial part. Thank you, everybody. Corona Namaste.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.